Good morning, everybody, and welcome to our webinar about social media. This is Jerry Fetty speaking, and I'm the CEO of Smart IT Services. Uh, Today, we're going to do the first webinar in a two-part series. We're going to talk about social media specifically and getting into detail about some of the more popular social media sites. But before we do that, I'd like to talk for a minute about a little bit more broadly about it. First of all, what is it? Why is social media such a big deal? And why should you care about it as an insurance agency? Usually when someone starts a presentation like this, they give you some demographics about a particular site, such as like, hey, something like more than 400 million people are using Facebook, and it's the largest demographic, that people who are using it are over 45 years old. I think demographics like this are important, but I don't want to start out with that. I want to take a little broader view and talk about why people are making such a big deal about social media. So a quick overview of our agenda. First thing to tell you, it's going to be important for you to see both sessions of our social media webinar series to get the full picture of social media, and I'll be sharing the second session's date with you in just a moment. The other thing I'd like to make important, or basically, is that I don't consider myself a social media expert. I do think I know a little bit more about it than most folks. I've been using it for a while, and hopefully today I will be sharing some information with you that you haven't heard before, or will help you learn more and use social media more effectively. So we can't teach you everything today. We're gonna take about 40 minutes or so for our session today, but we'll teach you some things you should know about social media. And at the end of the session, we'll try to do a Q&A session as well to answer any questions that you may have. So for our agenda today, for part one, we're going to define social media. We're going to talk very generally about the different types of social media, the uses of social media. We'll look inside some of the common social media sites. In 40 minutes, there's really no way we can teach you everything about the insides of some of the common sites. However, we do want to show you some things that we think are important. We'll also take a look at, we'll wrap up with, what are other agencies doing in social media right now, and also what we feel is an important thing to look at, which a lot of people seem to overlook when they're talking about social media, and what are the pitfalls of social media. And in there, we'll give you some ways to avoid those pitfalls. In part two, which is going to be on June 16th at 10 a.m. Eastern Time, we're going to talk about social media strategies. What are some of the strategies for using social media in your agency? We'll give you some tools that you can use to make using social media easier. We'll also share some additional resources for you to learn more about social media, and also give you a checklist of what you should do now in social media, again with a question and answer session. Another thing that's important for you to know today during our session is there are a lot of links built into this presentation. And at the end of the presentation, I will give you a link or share the information with you where you can go actually watch this presentation again, and download the actual presentation. So you'll have all of the information in here and all of the links that are included. So I'm going to actually go at a pretty fast pace to cover all of the information that we're going to cover today. So I wouldn't worry about taking a lot of notes, especially when I'm talking about links, because they're going to all be embedded within the presentation. You'll be able to download it and have those links available to you as well. And again, we can't teach you everything today, but we will teach you some things you should know. So let's get started. Let's talk about social media at a broad level first. So we're currently living in a moment that allows for the largest expression capability in human history. There are only 4 times in the past 500 years where media has changed dramatically enough to qualify for the label, revolutionary. The first was the printing press, movable type, oil-based inks, pressed with wood screws, turned Europe upside down. Basically, at that point, one person could get their message out to many. Then about 200 years ago, we had several innovations in one-to-one communication. First the telegraph and then the telephone. The telegraph was basically a send or forward a message and then somebody would receive it later. And then the real-time voice conversations came with the telephone. But 150 years ago, recorded media came into play. Things like photos, recorded sounds, and then movies, all recorded or encoded onto physical objects. Then the harnessing of electromagnetic spectrum happened. The ability to send sound and pictures through the air, radio and television, or the media landscape as we know it in the 20th century. Yet if you look at this, the media that is good at creating conversations is no good at groups, and the media that is good at creating groups is no good at creating conversations. Conversations in this world is with one other person. If you want to address a group, you get the same message and you give it to everyone in the group, or you basically broadcast it. The internet is the first medium that has native support for groups and conversations at the same time. Phone, one-on-one conversations, magazines, papers, one-to-many, internet also, but the internet also gives us a many-to-many pattern. That's one thing. The second big thing is all media gets digitized. The internet becomes a carrier for all other media. Phone calls migrate there, magazines migrate there, video, which means that every medium is right next door to every other medium. Members of the former audience can now be producers and not just consumers of media anymore. Finally, the same equipment that allows you to both consume and produce your own media. Now there's a video encoded into this presentation called the Social Media Revolution. It's a pretty effective video in demonstrating some of the power of social media. For webinar purposes, it's not really made to show you the video over the webinar technology today. So later on, I'd like you to go back, download this presentation, and you can click onto the computer to actually watch the Social Media Revolution video. Does anybody out there know how much money that Pepsi spent on the 2010 Super Bowl budget? Anybody have a guess? Well, Pepsi spent about $0 this year on the Super Bowl budget. Does anybody know how much Pepsi spent on their social media budget this year? Pepsi spent about $20 million on their social media budget. Now for Pepsi, obviously $20 million is probably just a drop in the bucket, but to spend $0 on the Super Bowl and $20 million on social media, to me shows that there's a trend shift that's happening with big advertisers, and that shift will eventually come down to the agency level or to the user or small business level as well.